The claim that we'll be responding to is that euthanasia has a negative effect on patients' life security in the U.S., with secondary claims, 1, being a doctor's influence will increase in a negative way, and 2, euthanasia will target the poor and disabled. Now, on the first secondary claim, the speaker mentioned an article by the Washington Post of euthanasia in the Netherlands resulting in the death of 1,040 people dying involuntarily. And this I see as a false analogy for U.S. because it is not something that can be compared to things that have happened in the U.S. given that the laws and way government runs is completely different than the Netherlands. And just because it happens in the Netherlands, of course, does not mean that will happen here. In response to their first secondary claim, over their reasoning, the doctor's influence will increase in a way that is dangerous to a patient's life security. Yet there is no evidence that this is true, and that this claim is made off of the American Medical Association Code of Euthanasia that was made in 1994 and revised in 1996, and based off of an article in 1991, when today euthanasia is only allowed in one state, and that is Oregon. That was made into law as of 1997. Therefore, the reasoning by the speaker is dated and not true for today's society. And the evidence for Oregon can be seen on an article given actually by the same author and one of the speaker's claims or evidence. And then a doctor's job description is to heal the sick, but for those that are terminally ill, euthanasia is seen as the only cure to a disease that will kill more sooner than later. When the speaker says that a doctor is not a psychologist, able to see if the patient is in the right mind to say that they would rather go through euthanasia and have help to be killed instead of going through their terminal illnesses, or have to put up with leaving the fact that their families have to pay for their hospital bills. This decision, then, why do doctors offer methods of healing and usually always have to result in asking for the consent from family members when the patient is in a mental state that they cannot make the decisions for themselves to help cure them. In response to the secondary claim, the evidence given by the speaker about the law professor, Yale counselor, with no date or that is euthanasia, that is, if euthanasia were legal, meaning it isn't in most states except for Oregon, patients who do not afford treatment would automatically choose euthanasia as an only means of escape. This statement only proves that a hypothetical example that will happen if euthanasia was legal in most of the United States, yet it is not. And it's based on the facts given that euthanasia was not legally illegal until 1996. And according to the speaker, that euthanasia will target the poor and disabled, if she does not give the audience evidence that this is mentioned, that was mentioned in the article referring to, but mentioned twice in an article by Richard Worsnop, which the speaker referred to, that as of 1992, 27 states in the United States had laws that prohibited euthanasia. Another article by Richard Worsnop in 1997 gives evidence that 35 states have laws that make it a crime for assisted death or euthanasia. 9 states also make it seen as manslaughter. 5 states is unclear, and only Oregon has made it lawful for euthanasia to be committed in hospitals. And also I mentioned in this article that as of 2005, the Bush administration did work to overturn this law. This is according to Kenneth Johnson. The evidence points that only one state in the United States were patients such as the poor and disabled could be targeted by euthanasia, therefore disproving the point and disproves that euthanasia has a negative effect on patients' life security in the U.S. Euthanasia will target the poor and disabled because of hospital bills. The speaker contradicts her earlier claim that doctor's role as a healer. She's making the assumption that all hospitals are heartless and that just because the patient will not provide financial payments for their treatment, the hospitals will choose euthanasia. My opponent said a patient wants death because they do not want to live anymore, but they do not take in mind that a patient is doing it for the loved ones or because they cannot afford it, then they are misleading the point and committing suicide. Would they really have any effect? My counterclaim is yes, it will have an effect because they do not suffer anymore, and when there's, especially when there is no cure. Of course, they will take in mind the family and medical bills, but they are not taking into account that they will die suffering or hooked on medical equipment to survive, and that is not living. Then they claim that if people choose euthanasia, then there will be a stop in medical events. But I say that this is not true, because those who choose euthanasia will only make doctors want to find more cures for most of the diseases that today have no cures, instead of not finding cures. Thank you.
All right, ultimately I think there's an argument that you're making here that says that this is really a hypothetical argument about future issues as opposed to an argument about current conditions, and I think you need to clarify that, because all the stuff that you present later on about current restrictions, that Oregon's the only state that allows this, are really attempts to diminish the impact that it is currently having, as opposed to what might happen if euthanasia was American policy. You've got a challenge to the analogy of the Netherlands without explaining what's different or why those differences matter, so you need to have, I think, a stronger argument there. Do you have any examples, for instance, from Oregon that show that these codes of ethics and the doctors do not gain control in these particular situations? Since that's the one place where it is available in the United States, then it would seem like you might have some examples that would illustrate it on that point. And on the last point, you basically make a counterclaim, but you don't provide any grounds or warrant for that counterclaim that says that doctors would still want to do this because people are killing themselves. That's a pretty big assertion without any grounds on it. All right, sorry about the rushing, but we got other people. Alan?